minutes.
Yeah, whichever. Sometimes we go longer, but
Yeah.
we don't have a definite time limit, but we want to go 20 plus. So we are
Okay.
live now. So good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're coming from. My name is Leo Chen, and you are on the Wisdom Club podcast live. We are live here with a super great guest. I've been looking forward for this for weeks because Dave is a veteran in the real estate business and just have a lot to share. And so we're gonna, I think this is gonna be a very impactful talk with him about all things real estate, but also wisdom around life. So Dave, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here, Leo. I always enjoy our time together. So when this topic came up, I certainly circled the date on my calendar. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. So I want to just kick this off and get to know you a little bit for the people out there who do know you. Would be interesting to hear, but also for the people that do not know you from our audience. Tell me a little bit about your kind of just take me back a little bit how you started in the business. What was that like, and kind of a little bit what you learned along the way, in the business. And then of course we'll talk about some of these other things that really want to touch on to help people.
Great. Yeah. So I've been in the business, I feel like my entire life. So I grew up in a resort town, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. And my father is a home builder. He's retired now, but he was a home builder. And so we were always around real estate. We were always around job sites, my brother and sister and I. And I was never, I'm the youngest of the three, so I was always kind of the talker, and I still am, kind of the handshakes and kissing babies guy. And my older brother took over the business, and he's the big, offensive lineman, rugby prop style. So we knew that was coming when we were children, because whenever we visited dad's job sites, my dad would give my brother the hammer to do some framing and work like that, and I'd get the broom. So I knew my place, and I knew where I was going to be. But growing up in the business, at least on the development side, I just always, learned about relationships and really learned about sales. So, I went off to college, and after college, I almost immediately got into sales, but in the timeshare world with the Marriott Corporation. And they moved me quite a bit around the world, from Breckenridge, Colorado, to back to Hilton Head, to Florida, to Chicago, to Maui, Hawaii, and then I ended up where I am right now in Scottsdale, Arizona, as a director of sales here for a site that they were opening up. So did that for a little over 15 years, and then just got into general real estate. I was in sales for the majority of that, but got into leadership roles for a bit, because I just felt, I was never the number one salesperson, but I was always a top five salesperson. So I thought that one pretty good salespeople could help a lot of other salespeople. And that really came out as kind of my passion of something that I really enjoyed doing, was, helping a lot of the others come along. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a very talkative person, and I'm always the guy that answers or asks the questions that maybe some others might not. Friends always laugh. They're like, if you're ever in a presentation with me, you'll always hear me ask questions or participating, because if I'm not participating, I'm not learning. And then at the end or right before lunch break, they'll say, before we break, are there any last questions? And everybody's packing up their stuff and ready to go to happy hour. I'm going to raise my hand.
Yeah.
And so some people don't like to have me in there, but I always think I know there's questions that went unanswered that people in the audience are, maybe it's just not, maybe they're not extroverted or whatever, and they're not asking that. And sometimes I like to cover those. So the things, of what you just said kind of jumped out to me of what I noticed all through at least a sales career. And I think, of course, it relates a lot to life, is authenticity. I learned very early on when I started, like I said, in the timeshare business. I immediately looked at the top two salespeople, and I was, late or mid 20s at the time. very young looking, very young acting, very inexperienced. And these guys wore coat and tie, in a beach resort, which to me made no sense. Everybody else was wearing golf shirts and such. But I started wearing a coat and tie because I said, I'm going to be like them. They're the top people. I'm going to emulate them. I'm going to do what they do. And what I came to figure out is if you are not yourself, I cannot be Leo. I cannot sell like you and you can't sell like me. And your clients or the people that you're speaking with are going to see that. And the earlier you start acting more like a human being and less like a salesperson, the better. So I literally at selling houses and selling fractional ownership in my late 20s, I literally had a thought in my mind, and this will make you laugh, that my goal for every client that I saw was not to sell them anything. What it was to get them to introduce me to their daughter or their granddaughter. And before that goes too far off on a tangent, the reason for that is trust. If there's no trust, there is no sale. And I didn't own a home. I didn't own anything. I was very inexperienced and I was very young. So how could I be authentic? I could just be myself. I'm a nice guy. I'm an honest person. And that's what I wanted to come across. And by the end of the conversation, and this is still back in the days where you pulled out, the pictures with all the way in the wallet. By the end of the conversation, if somebody said, I can't believe you're single. You need to meet our daughter. You need to meet our granddaughter. I knew they trusted me. Whether they were going to buy from me or not, I don't know. But trust from authenticity was key for me in my entire life of going through life in sales, because that would drop the barriers. And then you have the opportunity to tell them about your product. And if you're selling a pretty good product, your likelihood of getting a new customer is going to go up tenfold.
Yeah,
So that's my,
yeah, absolutely. We tend to put up walls to people we don't know. And so once you can break that down, which meaning like, oh, if they are willing to introduce you to someone else, then there's a level of trust. And if they willing to introduce you to someone that they love, their family or something like that, then the trust is just through the roof, right? And so I love that. I mean, if people can just keep that in mind, the goal is to just earn trust, and that's your hallmark, of what trust looks like. Because everybody's talking about, no like and trust, no like and trust, but then I like to always go deeper. Like, what does that actually mean? And it means something different to everybody else, right? And so that trust factor, if you can get to that trust factor quickly, then you're not, giving them a sales pitch like you said. You're saying, hey, I want to help you, and this is how I can help you. Does that sound like that will help you? And it really has to be that way, because nobody wants to be helped on something that they don't need help on, even if they need it, right? So
exactly.
but you said
you said sales lines. They're gonna your customers are smart. They know when you're being authentic, and they know when you're coming from a script.
Right, because they've heard it so many
Yeah.
times, right?
So many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
You said a couple of other things. Number one is what I really understand, and you actually took me back. The first thing you took me back was the wallet with the pictures. Like, I forgot about that. How it kind of just flips out. You got a big fat wallet with all your pictures, and it's almost like a wallet photo album, right? And it pops out. And you can show people your daughter, your kids, or whatever. So that definitely took me back. And number two is, I had a similar path too. My mother's been in real estate for close to 40 years now. And so when I was growing up, it was the same thing. She had this dream. She never pushed anything on us, but I always knew that she had this dream, like, hey, if you could do construction and I'll sell the real estate, you build it, I'll sell it, kind of thing, like, a mother's dream, right? And so when I was in my late teens, I started doing construction. So I learned a lot, in just a couple of years that I was in it, from the carpenters and, the contractors and even the laborers, that did all the heavy lifting. Because I'm not a big, muscly guy, and so I would carry, some planks, across the site, and then the foremen would look at me like, hey, I notice you're not carrying as much as some of the other guys. We go, well, I'm not a big, you know, built guy. I'm just not built like that. And so they decided that my skills were better served if I was more in the carpentry where, you had to measure stuff, you had to do more thinking and how, more on the finishing side of things. And I had a guy take me
Sure.
on doing rafters. So because rafters, you think about it, you have to do a lot of math, like all the angles and everything. You're building it from scratch, plank by plank, rather than having trusses. And so I
Right.
had a guy take me on, but the problem was we had to walk those planks to start building them because, in the beginning when you start on a house, there's nothing on there. You're literally just walking this 2x4 or 2x6 and then start lining them up, and you got to balance yourself, and you're carrying a saw, you're carrying all these tools, the hammers, and all this stuff in your pocket. And so it was not the safest thing that I ever did, but I did it for a couple of years, and it was good, except I didn't want to do the commute when they moved from site to site, and it was going to be an hour away to drive. And so but all the other carpenters, they helped me, they taught me a lot of great values, and how to do your work, how to think about stuff, and be smart, and all that stuff. So you took me back to a couple of those things. And then the two types of people, from what I learned recently, in the recent years in real estate, that are the best fit for something like what we do in real estate is either you've worked in hospitality, or you
Yep.
have you're a teacher. You're a natural educator, right? And if you have some of both, it's amazing, because you can tell right away that they're good people, and they want to help you, and that they have a service oriented mind in mind, so that
Right.
that you're not spending our money with someone who just want to shortcut everything, you know. So
I totally agree with that. I also, and on top of that, you've talked about a couple things too, is, it's collaboration. I think a lot of people in those businesses, you can't run a construction site alone. You know what your strengths are, or you will figure them out. And you have to realize that I don't like to talk about weaknesses. You can call them areas of improvement if you want, but you are going to be much more successful if you focus on your strengths. There's a book from the Gallup organization, Soar with Your Strengths, manage around your areas of improvement. And what you did in construction is you knew, this was not some, could you do the other part of construction? Yes. Would it take you a lot longer to do and be a lot more arduous and maybe not even correct a lot of the times? Yeah. But if you went into framing and you went into doing other things, you're going to get a lot further with that. Same thing with hospitality. There are people that are great at the front desk. There are people that are great at the housekeeping. There are great people that are great at the sales. There are people that are great at the marketing. But we all need each other to build that house. And so you have to surround yourself. And that's what I love to do. That's why I love always speaking with you also, because you have so many strengths that I don't have, that are much more areas of improvement. Could I do what you're doing? Could I get into the AI stuff that you've taught so many of us about? Absolutely. But it's easier for me to just say, hey, I'm gonna know enough to be dangerous, and anything else I'm gonna call Leo.
yeah,
It's the same thing. And then hopefully I can do the same for you, or there's other people that are involved in this sphere now that we've surrounded ourselves with, of all strengths, all strengths, all strengths that now complement each other. That's exactly,
yeah.
and I see that a lot in the hospitality business.
Yeah, and I love that, because whenever we travel, we forget about how much is go into just making you comfortable, right? And so we appreciate that, all the time. Going to conferences, going to, on vacation, wherever you go. And so I really love that. And you touched on something I want to kind of dig a little deeper, is around, of course, the collaboration part. The tagline that came to my mind was, a house isn't built by one person. It's built by, a team of experts, you know, in
Right.
every aspects of it, from the concrete, from the foundation, from people who are driving those big tractors and things like that to dig it all up and to make that work to start. And then you have your
Yeah.
foundation, your concrete, and your architect are designing things. I mean, you can go on, and it's the same thing. It's not just in construction, right? It's the same thing in our business in real estate. There's so many people. We talked a little bit about it before we started. Was how many people required to actually do a transaction, right? And I think people don't realize that, don't necessarily appreciate that, because our job, I guess in many ways the agents have done a good job. They say, hey, I'm your go-to. You're the seller, you're the buyer. I'll take care of everything. But we don't communicate enough, like who's doing all of these things in the back end to give them the result, right? We want to
Exactly.
they don't have to talk to 20 people or 15 people to get this done. They just talk to me, and I run quarterback, on everything. And so it's the same in construction. It's the same in real estate, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, or if you're investment property or multifamily, whatever it is, there's always so many people involved, just like building a house, right?
Always.
Yeah.
And that's how it gets sort of, I mean, and the thing about it is, especially, in real estate, I always kind of take a step back and look at it, from the, where they say 30,000 foot view, but we're all in it for the same thing, to get the transaction closed. And sometimes, whether it's in the negotiation part or whatever, the competition level goes up. And why is there competition when we both have the same goal in mind? We both want to bring this across the finish line to a closing. So let's collaborate more about how we can get this done for your client, the seller, my client, the buyer, or whatever it might be. So it's a true win-win situation for everyone, because that's what it really is. It almost doesn't matter about kind of the pricing of it, because if the seller is willing to accept that, then it's a win. Then they got out of a situation or did something, moved on for whatever reasons their reasons are, and everybody wins. But that's where sometimes it kind of gets me. It's like, hey, let's collaborate this to the finish line, Leo. Let's figure out how we can get this done, and have everybody work together to do this, because we can't do it ourselves. We need the transaction coordinators, we need the escrow officers, we need the lenders, we need the inspectors, we need all of that to all agree that everything is copacetic, and now we can move forward.
Yeah, don't let your uh, need or desire for competition override what your results going to be, because it's really the collaboration that's going to get you that. This is not a football game where you're like one team against another. It's not a finite game. This is about relationship. Many of us, all of us real estate agents, all know, like, hey, if I form a relationship with my buyer or seller, I could, sell and buy houses for them, their family members, their relatives, their kids, their daughter, their grandkids. Like it will continue to, give you clientele for the next 15, 20 years, right? So it's not
Yeah.
a, it's not a, I look at it as more of a relationship infinite game, rather than,
Yeah.
a short term, like I win, right? Well, now what, right?
Yes. And I think you and I both know that's what sometimes in real estate, the majority of people that are real estate are, get to be a little bit transactional. You talked about the word transactional before. And, I saw a stat with the National Association of Realtors that at the end of a transaction, 83% of buyers and sellers said they had a good enough relationship with their agent that they would use them again. 83%. And those that had bought a second or more time were asked, how many of you used the same agent that you did on a previous transaction? And it was 13%. And that just shows it's transactional. The majority is transactional. And why is it? And it's getting even more transactional now, because everybody has access to my database. Everybody has access to your database. The information is out there now. Everybody's database is in Whole Foods and Amazon and everything else like that. They're all over the place. So we have to really now collaborate and really kind of focus and shift our mindset a little bit more of from being a transactional to being a lot more of the relationship. I noticed this a lot the other day in the current market situation that we're in now is, we have a job as real estate agents when life changes happen, right? And just because interest rates went up to 7% doesn't mean people's lives stopped changing. People were still having babies. People were still graduating kids off to school. People were still getting married. People were still getting divorced. People were still passing away. Life is still changing. We've had to go from now being presenters of the information, here's the house, do you want to put an offer in on it, to now interpreters of the information of, Leo, what situation are you in? We need to sell our house because we've outgrown it, because we need, our life has changed, we need to move somewhere, but we don't want to because we have a 2.9% interest rate. Well, okay, is that the end of the conversation? And we're not having the conversations with our clients enough. That's a lot of the times what the clients are thinking. So the conversation isn't even happening. Instead, it's, are you ready to buy or sell? No. Are you ready to buy or sell? No. And that's it. We have to kind of say, hey, let's do a review of what's happening with your real estate portfolio. I just had this with with clients and neighbors the other day and their friends. They said, we live in 1,700 square feet. We've outgrown our home, but we don't want to sell because we have a 2.9% interest rate. And I said, well, what's wrong with that? They're like, well, we're locked in. And I couldn't believe they used the word locked in. I mean, like, well, there's worse places to be than locked in to a 2.9% interest rate. And I said, well, your options are you can sell. I know what your equity is. You can take the equity and put that towards the new home. And I'm like, well, we need to keep the payment under $4,000. And right now at 6.8 or whatever it was, it would be $4,500 on a home of, what their price range was looking for. And I said, but have you factored in the equity that you could pull out to put into there? And then maybe even if you didn't sell your house, maybe you rent your house. Keep your 2.9% if you like it so much. Rent it because I know you're going to get about $1,500 to $2,000 more than what your current mortgage is than what you would receive in rent. And now you're cash flowing and you can put that towards your $4,500, which now brings you down to $2,500 and everybody's happy. And they just looked at me with these, deer in the headlight eyes because we're the experts. They're depending on us to interpret this information. They don't know what a 2-1 buy down is. They don't know what's happening with rates. They're just staying quiet because inventory is low, rates are high, don't do anything.
Yeah,
but life is changing. Yeah, people's lives are changing. We need to now interpret the information rather than just present the information.
Yeah, that's so good. And what came to mind when you were talking was, if we are transactional, if we don't go one conversation deeper, two conversation deeper, because what you're describing, like that requires, thinking a little bit of math, a couple of levels deeper, right? Yeah. And if we don't do that, we're teaching all the consumers and clients and sellers not to go deeper with us. Right. So a lot of times I know when I have conversation with someone, I don't know, well, I have to break that down because they're like, hey, end of story, like, hey, we're locked in, end of story, that kind of thing, where I'm always encouraging, an additional conversation. Well, what about this? And what about that? And if we can do this, we can do that. But the scenario that you described, and this happens with everybody, not just this, it happens all the time.
All the time.
They can't think in a way like, okay, my interest rate will be higher. What's the difference between that interest rate and the amount that it'll cost me versus my value or benefit or what my equity is? Like, that's the comparison right there. The comparison is, they're really not making any comparisons at all. They just said we're locked in, so there's, in the story, there's no comparison. Well, you have to compare, like, right. Well, if I am paying a little bit more here, but my equity is so much higher and it's going up higher, right? Prices are going up faster or more over time than what I would pay here, then it's a win, right? And a lot of times it's a huge difference. I was helping one of my longtime uh, homeowners, they are renting their home. And she said, hey, after all the CMAs and stuff we did on what the market will bear for monthly rent was going to be $8,200 a month. And so that's what she wanted to market at. But after about 10 days, she wasn't getting the traction of people applying that she wants. So she came and talked to me like, hey, what should I do here? I said, well, you're looking at the people are searching for $8,000 a month and below, and you're just above. So they're not even seeing your listing, at all. So
Right.
if I were you, I would just bring that down. It's really just about the number. It's really not about how good or not good your home is, but I think it's fantastic. And if you can bring that down to the number where people can actually see it, like you'll get it. And so she said, well, if I lower it, then, I'm not going to get as much. I said, well, you're not getting anything now. For every single day that goes by is rent money that I think it's about probably a couple $100 a day that you're not collecting, right? If you leave it at this number and you wait and you don't get a tenant in there in 2 weeks, for example, that's $5,000, right? Four and a
There
half,
you go.
$4,000 plus, right? So if you lower it $200 ish, like $210 to get it below that 8,000, and if you
Yeah.
rent it in the next 10 days, that's worth it. Like you're going to come out on top, right?
Right there. You
Yeah.
break even. Yep.
Yeah. So
But
that
that
goes,
conversation is never going to happen unless you start it, because they're not even thinking. Again, we've real estate agents, I think, have these old school tactics, and a lot of them work. There's a lot of great things. One of my favorite trainings that I teach is called Find an Old Friend. And it's really going back to the basics of things that I did 20 years ago. And I go, wow, I'm not doing that anymore. And that worked. Maybe I should go back and try to do that, because I've started to do this whole tangential thing and I've gotten off. But it's having the conversations and not just saying, are you ready to buy or sell? Are you ready to buy or sell? It's like, hey, I know you're not ready to sell. I know, you've got a great interest rate of where you are. I just want to maybe sit down, have a cup of coffee or have a phone call, about where you are with your real estate, how things are going, kind of give you an overview. And all of a sudden, conversations like you just said start to happen.
yeah,
They say, well, yeah, we would like to, have a little bit bigger house, or, the kids in a couple of years are going to be out of school, or they're going to be in school, or we want to move to a different school district, or now we can work from anywhere. All of these things are happening and life is changing, but we're not having conversations about life changes.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's where I think we need to just have the conversation, get it off real estate, be their trusted advisor, truly, to kind of say, hey, there's a new restaurant that opened up in your town. Have you ever been by there to check it out?
yeah,
Oh, did you hear that this one is closing? Have those types of conversations, and they'll always know, because, oh, by the way, Leo's a real estate agent. Leo, how's the market? All of a sudden that question comes up. Well, it's dynamic, and I like to do that. Also, where it softens it up a lot is what in the timeshare what we used to call third-party stories. And I tell a story just like the one I told you. I have a client that's actually outgrown their home. It's 1,700 square feet. The kids are getting bigger. They want, a little bit more of a home, but they feel like they can't go anywhere because they have a 2.9% interest rate. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever, and they're like, yeah, we think the same thing, or we have neighbors, or we have friends that were just talking about that. And now all of a sudden, maybe it moves into a referral. Maybe it moves into, maybe all of a sudden they get that conversation with dinner with their neighbors. They say, you need to talk to Dave, our real estate agent, because he told us something that he has a lot of people asking that question. And he has this thing called a 2-1 buy down, or he has ways to build equity, or you can actually save your house. And I don't understand it because, I'm in the technology world, or I'm in, fashion, but he's the expert in real estate. You should probably talk to him because he's our trusted advisor and all of that.
yeah.
That's how it starts.
All of these things, I want the consumers to know that all of these things that have solutions that you're just not aware of. Because for whatever reason.
Correct.
It's not sexy to go into all the math and all the situation, and everybody's situation is different. So you couldn't really pinpoint one to actually tell everybody, anyways. But I think what's tough, in this business, we've always been word of mouth, postcards, or local, neighborhood agent that has been serving that neighborhood, and now everybody is hearing their own versions of stuff from the news, from the social media, and from everywhere else except the real estate agent. So they have preconceived notion, of what's going on, and unfortunately, they sell fear, right? They don't sell honest, real advice. They sell fear, and so the consumers get very fearful. Right, fearful of the interest rates. They're fearful they're going to make a wrong decision. Well, all those things can be, remedied by just having a good agent that's just on your side, right? That they're there to
Right.
help you, And so I just can't.
The change isn't about, pushing people to do things anymore. The change is about removing the obstacles of why they're not changing.
Yeah,
And that's why I love doing it through, third party stories. If you had on one of those postcards, I have a client that has a 2.9% interest rate, and this is the reason why they won't sell their home. Somebody is going to relate to that.
yeah,
If that's what you have on your postcard, that's a postcard that I would read and go, light bulb,
yeah,
and when that light bulb happens, then they're going to read the rest of it, and then they're going to see your name, and then the questions might start. That's where I really get my joy, when this client stopped and they looked at each other, and I could see the light bulbs went off of, there's a way. There's a way that we can get what we want. There's actually 3 different options that we have now, rather than just sitting back and writing this out. And what are you waiting for? Are you hoping to get back to 3%? You're gonna be waiting a long time.
yeah,
Probably ever. Who knows? I don't know if that'll ever happen. We don't have the crystal ball.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And for those people who are listening, interest rates are higher, but they're not crazy terrible. If you need a house, you need a house, right? And waiting
Right.
has never, well, I won't say never, but at least in the recent years, has not helped anyone. I have people who have been on my list for 4 years, 5 years, trying to buy a home, and then now they're just basically priced out, right? Homes used to be
Right.
half the price, literally, just before COVID, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. So, and then they're now in this position and they're thinking, oh, well, it's too expensive. Well, if you think it's too expensive now, like wait a year, wait 2 years, right? Because it's going to continue, to go up. As soon as the interest rates come down, the price is going to, go up again, right? And every year, I just try to tell them, hey, on a conservative side, every year, home prices go up anywhere from 5% to 8%. 8% is a pretty good year as far as increase in equity. 5% is on the low side, right? So if you factor that in and figure that that's what a normal cycle, a yearly cycle would be, then you really, at $1 million house, for example, here in Southern California, that's, $80,000. Are you going to make an extra $80,000 to keep up with that, kind of, inflation, right, of the homes? So the sooner you own a home, the sooner you can earn that every year and live in the house that's earning you equity, right? And that's why people are being priced
Right.
out, because they're renting and not earning any equity. And then if you, last thing I'll say is, if you're worried about a 7% interest rate, well, the renting is 100% interest rate. That's 100%. You're paying
Exactly.
100%. Do you want 100% interest rate, or do you want 7%? Right? And so
Right.
we have to put those things
Right.
in perspective for people. They think that, oh, we're going to rent for a while and think that's a good deal. It's not necessarily, a good deal. It's not, definitely not a long-term solution, because people are
Yeah.
just
And
having to pay more.
another one of those things of that 30,000 foot view is, I think some people, when you think $1 million, you really ask, Leo, have you ever bought a home for $1 million? Or I should rephrase that. Have you ever paid $1 million for a home? Just because you bought the home and on paper it's $1 million doesn't mean that's what you didn't put $1 million. You didn't buy it as cash, did you? I mean, maybe some people do, but majority of people that are taking out mortgages that are worried about these interest rates, you're putting 3% to 20% down. So what are you really on the hook for? Where's your fear? If that rate, if the market crashes or whatever, and it goes from 1 million to 800,000, you still only had 20% down. That's what you're in on right there. It's kind of, just a picture. I think that some people see that huge number. I paid this for this house. No, you didn't. You paid 3 to 5 to 10 to 20% of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the rest you're doing, your payments. And you're not probably ever going to pay the $1 million for this house. You're probably going to end up selling it before the end of the 30-year mortgage, which obviously with interest rates makes you 1.5 to 2 million for spending for that house. You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So just think about what you're really paying, you are leveraging that with the bank. You put, your 20% in. That's what you paid for the house.
Yeah, it's the greatest leverage ever, in real estate. There's nothing else like it. There's nothing else where you can say, hey, I'll pay, a small down payment and then I'll earn all this equity and have this big old asset, and then I can actually live in it at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And
I know all of us that are in this industry, if we had to do it all over again, when I was, when I was 25 years old, I would have been socking everything away to buy, to buy, to buy, to buy.
yeah,
I would have had a lot more homes than I did.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Instead, I blew it.
Well, most people have, right? And so once
Right.
they realize, what a golden opportunity it is, and it's still a golden opportunity, right now,
Still,
right? So if you can, when they say,
always.
well, when should I buy? Say, well, you buy when you're ready. You buy when you can afford it. Can afford the payments, and make that commitment to buy. Um, Not when the interest rates are high or low. You buy when you need a place to live, right? And if you're able to buy, then
Yeah.
buy it, right? Now, don't wait when you need to buy and want to buy, just because of some other factors, outside. Because a home is a home, especially if you're going to live in it. If it's investment, well, that's a different story that we can go over, right?
Sure. I remember, you and I have all these stories of, when we bought our first home, I think, 28 years old. It was 7.78%. I was ecstatic. I was ecstatic.
Yeah,
I could afford it. It
yeah,
was a great home. It was comfortable. I loved living in it. I sold it for a profit.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really relative, right? Like we've been used to this 3% or even lower, and then all of a sudden now it's 6 to 7%, and we're like, oh my god! But then I think people are getting used to it, and I think real estate with interest rates, if you locked in at 7% right now, okay, it's higher than it used to be, so you're at 7%. If it does go down, which a lot of people saying are expecting it to go down, and if you're going into this market as a buyer, so I'm going to wait for it to go down, you definitely expect it to go down, right? You buy at 7%.
Sure.
When it does go down, you get to refinance. And if it doesn't go down, let's say it stays where it is, we're like, well, okay, good. I didn't lose anything. I didn't, nothing changed, so everything stays at 7. But if it goes up, well, you're already locked in at 7%, so you didn't miss out. So your chances of coming out on top is pretty high. So
Yeah.
if you can afford the monthly payment, I know monthly payment is a big deal for people, right? If you can't
Sure.
if you can't afford that monthly payment, then you may have to wait or buy a cheaper house to make that payment work, right? And
Yeah.
but definitely, you can afford to do it. You're ready to do it. You should just do it, right? Yeah, because you you're
Just
you're you're going to come out on top.
and for everybody, whether you're a real estate agent watching this, whether you're a consumer watching this, whatever it is, have the conversations. There are things, there are ways, there are conversations, there are topics that you're not even thinking of that could help you get into home ownership, or that extra home, or sell the home that you're in to afford the other one. There are so many different options out there that you're not even thinking of, because none of us are having the conversations, either from the agent side or from the consumer side. So reach out. If you're a consumer, reach out to your agent, reach out to the person that you know. Everybody knows one or 10 or whatever, or reach out to me, or reach out to Leo, and just have conversations about it. It's about finding the fit. and being authentic, going back to all the things that we were talking about before, authentic is how you find this is what will work for you. Build that trust. You can trust that we're going to give you the right information. The lender's going to give you the right information. The housing market, we're going to decipher that. We're going to interpret it for you and not just present it for you. And that's how you come to the conclusion of, okay, this is a good time for me or this is not a good time for me. And either way, that's what you want to get to.
Yeah, yeah, and find a good agent. And the way that you know is a good agent is that they, you can tell they're here to serve you, number one, and then number two, they have your back. They really want you to succeed, regardless of what happens. It's about what your decisions are, not what they want to sell you, right? So definitely reach out to either David and myself. Of course, we would love to be able to help you, but if it's not us, if it's not a right fit, we would love to refer somebody else who can be a right fit for you, whether it's location wise or a certain situation that somebody else may be a better fit. But we are if we have a heart of a teacher, right? And we have a heart of trying to give as much value as people as much as possible, then we're kind of like resource hogs. I know I hog all kinds of
Yes.
good vendors, contractors, all kinds of good escrow people, lender people, all kinds of people, so we can direct you to the right people, because we want success for you. Dave, I want to just shift gears for just a little bit. Let's talk. A lot of people are having a lot of struggles because the market is tough. We're talking specifically real estate market. Interest rates are higher. Inventory is lowest ever in history that we can all remember, because it was low last year and it's even lower this year.
Yeah.
A lot of demand for homes, so people want to buy. They're either not sure of what if they should jump in the market and buy something, or they feel like they're priced out, or they have fears of interest rate, as we talked about. And then we have real estate agents that have done well, but their production, their sales are down by 30%, 40%, or even more. And many agents are, getting out of the business, because of it. We all kind of hear the numbers. If you're in the industry, that, the numbers are out there, to how many people are kind of leaving, the business because they just can't continue, they just can't make enough of a living. So there's a lot of struggles
Right.
out there right now, just really all pending on this interest rate. When the interest rates go up, it affects us, it affects everybody in our industry, and it affects all the consumers at the same time. And a lot of people are struggling. And so what advice do you have out there to people who are having a hard time either in the real estate industry or otherwise, because there is some pressure, on people. Some people have to work harder for the same amount of money, or work more, just to make ends meet.
I think my advice would be a little bit first of what we talked about. Have the conversations, and not just the straight conversation of, are you ready to buy or sell? Are you ready to buy or sell? It's have the true, authentic conversations of, how are you feeling about real estate? What life changes have been happening to you? And then again, I have a client that that's had some major life changes and they really want to move, but they feel like the interest rates and the tight inventory is kind of not a perfect situation for them to do. How do you feel about that? And let them tell you what the situation is. That's how you start those conversations. I think that's really one of them. I recently changed brokerages, and a lot of it was because of what you said. I think I went to a financial planner to kind of to look into this, said, what can I do? What's my best situation to kind of, continue my path to wealth or comfort or whatever it is that I want to be? And he said, well, from a financial advisor standpoint, you got to look at three things. You got to make more money with what you do for a living. So in real estate, it's either sell more houses or don't drop your commissions. That's one of them. Or seek a brokerage maybe that has a different model for commissions, either a cap model or whatever it might be, but it's all about the return on investment. What you're giving to the brokerage are you receiving that plus more in return? Are you doing that? So look at that. Then he said, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, a way to wealth is you have to find some type of second income. I don't like to use the word passive income. A friend of mine named Max, he turned me on to this. He goes, I don't like passive income. It sounds lazy. I said, I agree with you. I go, let's call it kind of inertia income or something like that, where you have to do something to get the ball rolling, but then you can kind of lay off it for a little bit and it keeps going. That's not passive. You got to get things going. So you have to, and that can be a second stream. That can, whatever it is for you, you can turn a hobby into things. You can turn something, but something that's just going to help you maybe get a little bit along. And then the third thing he says is 28% of my clients from an investment standpoint, have stocks. He goes, so if you can look at something that you can make more money, by what you're doing for a living, whether it's, your commissions or whatever that is, second income, second stream, and then stocks, those are three things if you want to stay in this industry that are going to get you through some of the times that are like this. But the first is, like I said, having those conversations. And there was something that I learned from going through ninja training, and a lot of people have gone through that. And I've been through a ton of different trainings and stuff like that. One huge thing that stuck with me was you don't have to do everything; you just have to do something. And in times like this, a lot of us get stuck in one way or one view of doing things, and so we don't end up doing anything. And sometimes we don't seek the advice of others, or we just kind of keep doing something our own way, or hey, let's just write this out. Just it's the whole. There's so many analogies on this. 1% better today. Don't do anything, just do something. At the end of the day, put on the back of your office door or at your home or whatever it is and say, what did I do today to move my business forward? And if you can't answer that question, go back to your computer or go look at your phone and make one more call or do something. Send out a newsletter, have a conversation with somebody, and drop your card to something like that. Just anything, because those little things will add up. And, before you know it, everything will be flowing again. And I think this situation, they've always said a lot of, successful millionaires and successful businesses arrive from times like this. And it will happen again. Keep the faith on that, but don't keep the faith so much that you're just sitting back in your comfort zone and not getting out there and doing something that maybe you haven't done before. And, kind of making that little shift, not a huge thing, nothing that's inauthentic, but just something that maybe you were either doing previously and aren't doing now, or something that, you get some coaching or counseling from other people, an idea. I might say, I'm going to try that for a little while. And that will get your momentum going. And that's what's going to take you to the next level.
Yeah, so good, so good. I agree with you. Passive income does sound a little lazy. So what came to mind to me was at least like leverage income. Like, leverage doesn't mean you're not doing anything. Leverage just means that you get more for your effort if you can do it smart, right? And so a lot of people's side hustle, and side hustle is not really the best phrase either. But
No.
we tend to find when we have to find something that's a secondary income. What I find for most people is that secondary thing that they do ends up being something they're very passionate about, right?
Right.
And that
That's what's
because
a hobby or something like that
yeah,
you monetize.
yeah, because they got their primary thing that like they got into it because they feel like they'll make a good living at it, but not necessarily in their zone of genius, and not necessarily that's something that they love to do. But when they're forced to have to find a secondary thing, well, if my primary thing is not the happiest thing that I do, then that secondary thing, well, definitely I should pick something that's happier. If I'm gonna work extra hard, that definitely needs to be something that I love more, right? Or love at my best, and that I do a good job on. And a lot of people they thrive on that. And so I think that quote unquote side hustle, is a really good thing to think about and have a conversation about. And people who are
Plus, it starts action. It gets
yeah,
you active.
yeah,
That's the thing, because maybe sometime in your primary, the situation shows that you're not able to be as active as you once were. So just stay active, and then that's going to roll over to your primary.
Yeah, and it's so easy to start your own side business nowadays, right? It's not. It's
Really is.
definitely, with all the technology. You and I connected because of technology and everything. But over the last few years, I mean, you could, create your own logos. You can create your own website. Just a few clicks of a button. I was just watching someone going through a tutorial of how to like actually just build an online um, uh, website, e-commerce business, just from like literally an hour or less. You can have a name, you can have a logo, you can have it generate your web page for you, and then you have a sign in. You can add your products already, and you can connect the payment to it like you're done. I mean,
Right.
couldn't whoever imagined that 10 years ago that you could, build a online store, in just some clicks of a button, right? And now it's really, really happening, and it's only getting easier. So, at the end of the day, that's not the value that you offer clients. It's the product, the idea that you have that you're going to sell. Is it valuable to people? The rest of it, the technology rest of it is getting easier and easier for you to do, so that there is no technical barrier. That the barrier really is the right product or the right service that you want to do, and then the rest can be, we can put up a store very quickly. So I want people to kind of know that what an amazing time we're living in, that we get to do that type of stuff.
We absolutely are. There's so many ideas out there, and journaling some of those, or just sitting back and thinking, or seeing ideas on social media and stuff like that. I think people know what they love to do. People know what they really enjoy doing, and those are the things that we're not talking about spending a full-time job on it. We're talking about a couple hours a day. That's something that could really supplement or complement what you're doing already.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, Dave,
Yeah.
you dropped so much good knowledge and good experience, on all of us. This is going to be one of the great podcast episode ever. Can't wait to kind of get it out there and get it published and syndicated everywhere, so people can learn from this, whether you are a consumer wanting to know, like, well, I need to solve some problems here so that I can get ahead in my housing and my kids and housing and all that kind of stuff, as well as real estate agents that need some help right now, because inventory is down, and
Yeah.
the sales opportunities are down, because it's just our products is the home, and the home, there's not as many homes to sell right now, right? So we want to help
That's
them
right.
as well. And so, as per tradition, we always ask our guests to share a quote with the world today. And so, would you like to share your quote right now?
Yeah, one that I always go by. It's funny; it'll relate very well to what we were just talking about, and it's from Les Brown, and he said, "You can't see the picture when you're in the frame." And that, I think, can really relate to everybody. You need to get on networking events. You need to get coaching. You need to seek out other people's opinions on things, because you might not be able to see kind of what's going on because you're in the picture, you're in the frame, okay, and you can't see that. And that's why I enjoy coaching so much, because it's not that I know everything. I don't have the answers for everybody to get you to where you're going. However, I have a different perspective. And you need to get yourself around people that have a different perspective. Whether you are the real estate agent, whether you are the consumer, no matter where you are, get some opinions of other people, whether you're in a networking group, a mastermind. I always said, I went to, everybody has, like, you go to therapies, you go to things like that. And I always kind of left, I go, I would rather have a coach than I would a therapist, because a therapist is great at listening, but doesn't necessarily give me any advice.
Right.
And it used to frustrate me. And then, I want to hear somebody tell me, hey, have you ever tried this? Might not be good advice. Might not pertain to what I want to do. But it's going to make me think. And they're saying that because they're not in the picture.
Yeah.
They're not in the frame. They're seeing it from the outside. So that's how you collaborate more. That's how you start getting ideas. And that's how you can also throw out ideas. I love to share a lot of ideas that I think might be crazy ideas or might be a little bit good. But if I share it with Leo, Leo's going to make it a little bit better. and Leo's going to share it. It's going to get a little bit better. Then all of a sudden we can bring together a really great idea. And so we're put on this earth to have relationships. Let somebody else take a look, at what you're doing from a different perspective, because you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. And Les Brown was 100% right on that. And I say that, I've been saying it for 20 years. And that's why I enjoy doing things like this, Leo. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so good. I think most people, I don't think I've ever heard that quote before, and I'm a big quote collector as well. And so I appreciate
Yeah.
you, bringing that, up and sharing with everyone. And for sure, we all try to look ourselves in the mirror, but, we do need outside eyes. We need everybody to give us, their opinion. I constantly think, like, who can I ask about this thing that I'm thinking about? Maybe I'm not looking at the right way. Maybe I'm not thinking about it the right way. And I'm always surprised of what some of the coaches and mentors that I have will reflect back to me, like, oh, I never thought of that. You're absolutely right. And really changes your trajectory, on life. We're all, I like to say that we're all one or two ideas, away from a completely different life, right? And our
Yes.
ideas could come from ourselves, and then it could come from other people. And unfortunately, what got us here with our own ideas is not going to get us there, right? So
Right.
definitely outside eyes and being in the frame. If you can picture that, you're in your own frame, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else can see what you look like, but you can't see what you look like, right? So
I always picture yourself walking through an art gallery and looking at something beautiful, and how I'm interpreting that picture differently than you're interpreting that picture. And the painter interpreted it a
yeah,
totally different way.
yeah,
But what are the people that are in that picture thinking?
right, right,
It's photography or whatever it might be, or, at a mastermind or on a stage, or anything like that. And that just levels up collaboration. We all need each other. Opinions are great. Some of them, are, again, maybe not the best advice for you, but I think that might give you, even if you get some bad advice, now
yeah,
now that's not. And maybe I've gotten a lot of really bad advice that has led to some great things, because I go, not going to do it that way, but that just made me think of something to go the other way.
that's right. That's right. So there's
Yeah.
really, at the end of the day, no bad advice. It's just what you can make
There's
use
no
of
bad
it.
advice.
Yeah, yeah,
There's only the advice that's right for you.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
David. This has been so enlightening, and I appreciate you spending the time with us. And we love coaches and educators, and you're one of those guys who really just give and give. And I loved that you came and spent the time with us. And of course, I would love to have you come back on and catch up with us again. I'm sure there'll be a lot more to share. And so just in closing, how can everybody reach out to you and get a hold of you?
Well, I am in the Phoenix, Arizona area. I'm on Instagram at Dave Pullon. And you can also reach me. My email is david@realverticalre.com. So any questions, any comments, any insights that you have, I'm more than happy to help you with. Let's just, again, rely on each other and collaborate.
Yeah, well, I'll get all that stuff in the description and the captions in the comments so that everybody can reach out to you. Appreciate you so much. I look forward to our next
Pleasure.
time talking, and then for more wisdom. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks, Leo.